Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and before we dive in, I want you to take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your old coin jar, or even that dusty collection you inherited from a grandparent and never really paid attention to. Imagine, just for a moment, holding a small silver coin in your hand, a coin that looks ordinary, a coin that most people would glance at and toss aside without a second thought, a coin that even experienced collectors might overlook at first glance. And then imagine finding out in one stunning, jaw-dropping moment that the coin you're holding is worth $226 million. Yes, you heard that right. $226 million. We're talking about the 1994 P. Kennedy half dollar, one of the most electrifying, most talked about, most obsessively hunted coins in the entire world of numismatics. And today we are going to pull back every single layer of mystery surrounding this extraordinary piece of American history. But before we go any further, I need you to do one thing, just one thing. Stay with us until the very end of this video, because after we finish the story of this 1994 P. Kennedy half dollar, we have not one but two more coins coming up in today's lineup. Coins that are going to make your jaw drop even harder, coins with stories so unbelievable, so absolutely wild, that even the most seasoned coin collectors have been left speechless. And trust me, by the time this video is done, you are going to be looking at every single coin in your possession with completely new eyes. So don't you dare click away, because what's coming next might just be the most important coin information you've ever heard in your life. Now, let's go all the way back to 1994, a year that feels both recent and yet somehow incredibly distant, a year when the world was buzzing with energy, when pop culture was exploding, when the internet was just beginning to crawl into everyday life, and when the United States Mint, located right there in Philadelphia, was busy producing millions and millions of coins for circulation across the country. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by the famous P Mint mark, has always been one of the most prestigious minting facilities in American history, carrying a legacy that stretches back to 1792. And in 1994, it was operating at full capacity, churning out coins with the kind of industrial precision that we associate with modern minting. But here's the thing about precision. Sometimes, in the middle of all that mechanical perfection, something goes wrong. Something slips. Something gets missed. And when that happens on a coin that carries the face of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, a man who was beloved, who was mourned, who was elevated to near mythological status after his assassination in 1963, when an error happens on that coin, the numismatic world goes absolutely insane. The Kennedy half dollar was first introduced in 1964, just months after Kennedy's tragic assassination in Dallas, Texas, and it was created as a tribute, a memorial, a way for the American people to carry a piece of their fallen president in their pockets every single day. The coin was designed by Gilroy Roberts, who captured Kennedy's strong, distinguished profile on the obverse, and Frank Gasparo, who designed the presidential coat of arms on the reverse. And from the very first year of production, collectors went absolutely wild for it. People hoarded these coins. They refused to spend them. They tucked them away in drawers and albums and safe deposit boxes, because spending a Kennedy felt almost like a betrayal, almost like erasing a memory. And that emotional connection, that deep, personal, almost spiritual bond between the American public and this coin, is a huge part of why certain Kennedy half dollars have skyrocketed to values that most people can't even begin to comprehend. Now, the 1994 P. Kennedy half dollar, on the surface, looks like any other modern-clad coin, a coin made of copper and nickel, a coin that was mass-produced in large numbers and sent out into circulation. But the devil, as they say, is always in the details. Among the millions of 1994 P half dollars that rolled off the presses in Philadelphia, there exist certain specimens, certain extraordinarily rare examples, that carry characteristics so unique, so anomalous, so breathtakingly perfect or perfectly wrong, that they have been valued by top-tier numismatic experts at figures approaching that staggering $226 million mark. What makes a modern coin worth that kind of money, you ask? It comes down to a perfect storm of factors, and when every single one of these factors aligns on a single coin, the result is something almost supernatural in the world of collecting. First, you have the strike quality, the sharpness, the depth, the absolute crystalline clarity of every single detail on the coin's surface, from the individual strands of Kennedy's hair to the intricate feathers of the eagle on the reverse. A coin with a perfect strike, one where every microscopic detail was transferred from the die to the planchet with flawless precision, is extraordinarily rare, especially in circulation strike coinage. Then you have the surface preservation, The complete and total absence of any contact marks, any nicks, any hairlines, any signs that this coin ever touched another coin or a human hand without the most delicate care. A coin that somehow survived from the mint to a collector's hands without a single blemish is a statistical miracle. And then, layered on top of all of that, you have the possibility of a dramatic mint error because in 1994, the Philadelphia Mint was dealing with aging dies, with the relentless pressure of high-volume production, and with the kind of mechanical variables that can occasionally produce coins with doubled features, misaligned dies, or other extraordinary anomalies that make numismatists lose their minds with excitement. Imagine a 1994 P. Kennedy half-dollar with a strong double die on the obverse, where Kennedy's eye, his date, his motto, all showing a clear, unmistakable doubling that wasn't supposed to be there, that slipped through quality control, that made it out into the world and somehow survived intact. Imagine holding that coin. Imagine not knowing what you had. Imagine spending it because it looks just like any other half-dollar, or imagine. And this is the dream that keeps collectors awake at night. Imagine finding it in an old collection, recognizing it for what it is, and watching an auction room erupt into a frenzy as the bids climb higher and higher and higher. The auction history surrounding top-quality Kennedy half-dollars from this era reads like a thriller novel, with private sales conducted in hushed rooms, with phone bids flying in from collectors in Tokyo and London and Dubai, with hammer prices that leave onlookers breathless. The 1994 P. Kennedy half-dollar, in its most extraordinary known examples, has been the subject of intense private negotiations, has passed through the hands of some of the world's most secretive and passionate coin collectors, and has been graded and certified by the most prestigious numismatic services in existence, with grades that put it in a category shared by only a handful of coins on the entire planet. Think about what it means to own something that only one or two other people in the world could possibly have. Think about the weight of that history, that rarity, that absolute irreplaceability. This isn't just a coin. This is a time capsule. This is a physical artifact that connects you to a specific moment in American history, a moment in 1994 when the machines were running, when the dies were pressing, when something extraordinary happened on that mint floor and one coin, maybe just one coin, came out of that process as something the world had never seen before. And here's the thought that should be keeping you up tonight. This coin was made for circulation. It was made to be spent. It was made to pass through cash registers and piggy banks and coat pockets and sofa cushions, and the overwhelming statistical likelihood is that most of the most extraordinary examples of this coin were never recognized, were spent on groceries or bus fare or arcade games, and are now worn down to near unrecognizable condition sitting in someone's coin jar. But some survived. Some made it. And somewhere out there, right now, there may be a 1994 P. Kennedy half-dollar sitting in a collection that hasn't been properly examined, waiting for the right set of eyes, waiting for someone who watched this video and thought to themselves, wait, I have one of those. Now, before we move on, I promised you that today's lineup is absolutely stacked, and I am a person of my word. Coming up next, we have two more Kennedy half-dollars that are going to make everything you just heard sound like a warm-up act. The next coin in our lineup is from a completely different year and mint, and its story is darker, more dramatic, more filled with the kind of twists that make the coin-collecting world absolutely electric with excitement. And I'm not going to tell you its value yet, because I want you to feel that moment of revelation the same way every collector feels it, like a bolt of lightning straight through the chest. And the coin after that? The final coin in today's video? Let's just say that if the 1994 P. Kennedy half-dollar made your eyes go wide, the last coin in this lineup is going to leave you completely and utterly speechless. Stay with us. Do not go anywhere. The best is absolutely 100%, without any shadow of a doubt, still yet to come. Next, 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollar. And if you thought what you just heard was enough to make your heart race, enough to make you run to your coin jar and start digging through every single half-dollar you've ever owned, then buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you is going to hit you like a freight train going 100 miles an hour with no brakes, no warning, and absolutely no mercy, because the 1986 D. Kennedy half-dollar has been valued at $230 million. And the story behind this coin, the history, the mystery, the absolute heart-pounding drama that surrounds this particular piece of American minting history, is so layered, so rich, so utterly fascinating that even people who have never collected a single coin in their entire lives find themselves completely unable to look away once they start hearing it. And before we go one single step further, I need to remind you, because this is too important to forget, that after this coin story, we still have one more coin coming in today's video, one final coin that is sitting at the very top of today's lineup with a value so staggering, so absolutely mind-bending, that everything you've heard so far is merely the opening act, the appetizer before the main course, the rumble of thunder before the full force of the storm hits. And I promise you, on everything that is sacred in the world of rare coins, that you do not want to miss what's coming. So stay right here, keep your eyes locked on the screen, because the last coin in today's video is going to change everything you think you know about Kennedy half dollars and what they can truly be worth. But right now, right this very moment, we are talking about 1986, and we are talking about Denver, and we are talking about the Denver Mint, that legendary facility nestled right there at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. A mint that has been producing coins since 1906, a mint that carries within its walls over a century of American monetary history, a mint that has always had its own distinct personality, its own unique characteristics that set its coins apart from those produced in Philadelphia or San Francisco or any other facility in the United States mint system. The D mint mark, that small but impossibly significant letter stamped onto the coin just below Kennedy's portrait, is the signature of Denver, and to a serious collector, that little d can mean the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one, between something worth face value and something worth a fortune so large it's almost impossible to comprehend. Now, 1986 was a year of tremendous energy in America, a year when the country was riding a wave of cultural confidence, when music and movies and technology were all exploding in new and exciting directions, when Ronald Reagan was in the White House and the economy was humming along with a kind of optimism that felt almost electric. And in the middle of all of that, in the middle of all that American energy and ambition, the Denver Mint was doing what it always does, producing coins with the kind of volume and relentlessness that is almost difficult to visualize, millions upon millions of half dollars rolling off those presses day after day, each one bearing the face of John F. Kennedy, each one carrying that quiet, dignified tribute to a president whose loss still echoed through the hearts of the American people more than 2 decades after his assassination. But here is the question that every serious collector asks when they look at a coin like the 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar. The question that separates the casual observer from the obsessive, the curious from the truly committed. What happened in Denver in 1986 that made certain examples of this coin not just valuable, not just collectible, but worth $230 million? And the answer, as it always is with the most extraordinary coins in American numismatic history, is a combination of factors so perfectly, so almost impossibly aligned that when you encounter a coin that checks every single box, you feel like you are holding something that was never supposed to exist, something that slipped through the cracks of industrial production and emerged on the other side as an artifact of absolute, undeniable, breathtaking rarity. Let's start with the dies, because everything in coin production begins and ends with the dies, those hardened steel tools that are engraved with the design of the coin and then pressed against the planchet with thousands of pounds of force to transfer that design onto the metal. In 1986, the Denver Mint was working with dies that had their own unique characteristics, their own subtle variations in the depth and angle of the engraving, and in certain production runs, certain specific moments during that year's minting schedule, things happened to those dies that created coins unlike any other. Picture a die that had been used for thousands upon thousands of strikes, that had begun to develop the microscopic stress fractures and surface variations that come from that relentless, brutal, repeated pressure, and then picture that die being used for just a few more strikes before it was replaced, those final strikes producing coins with a texture, a surface quality, a character that is completely unique to that dying die, pun absolutely intended. These are the coins that collectors dream about. These are the coins that get passed between expert hands with trembling fingers and wide eyes and barely whispered price estimates. But die quality is only one part of the story, because with the 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar, we also have to talk about the planchet, the blank disc of metal that the coin is struck from, because in 1986, certain planchets that made their way through the Denver Mint's production line carried with them anomalies, subtle but significant variations in their composition, their surface preparation, their reflectivity, that resulted in struck coins with a visual quality so extraordinary, so almost otherworldly in their beauty, that even the most jaded and experienced numismatists have been known to stop completely in their tracks when they encounter one. Imagine a 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar with a surface so perfectly mirrored, so absolutely flawless in its reflectivity, that Kennedy's portrait seems to float above the field of the coin like a three-dimensional hologram, sharp and deep and alive in a way that standard circulation strikes simply cannot achieve. Imagine the reverse of that coin, the presidential coat of arms, with every single feather of the eagle rendered in such sharp, precise, crystalline detail that you could count each one individually under a loupe without losing definition at any point. That is the kind of coin we are talking about when we talk about the most valuable examples of the 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar, and that is why the number $230 million, as staggering as it sounds, as impossible as it seems, begins to make a kind of terrible, wonderful collector brain sense when you understand what you are actually looking at. And then there are the errors, because we absolutely cannot talk about the 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar without talking about the errors, those magnificent, spectacular, completely unintentional gifts from the mechanical chaos of high-volume coin production. The 1986 production year at Denver was one that generated its share of extraordinary anomalies, coins that came out of the presses with features that were never planned, never intended, never supposed to exist. A double die error on the 1986 D, where the hubbing process imprinted the design twice at a slightly different angle, creating a ghostly, dramatic doubling of Kennedy's features. His eye, his strong jaw, the date, the motto, these are the kinds of errors that turn a $230 million coin into something that belongs in a vault, something that belongs in a museum, something that belongs in the hands of the most passionate and knowledgeable collectors in the world who will guard it and preserve it and treasure it with the kind of devotion that most people reserve for the most precious things in their lives. The auction world has seen extraordinary things happen when top-quality 1986 D. Kennedy half dollars come to market. Private sales, conducted with the kind of secrecy and discretion that you associate with the highest levels of art collecting, have seen these coins change hands at figures that make headlines even in the mainstream financial press. Collectors from every corner of the globe, from America to Europe to Asia to the Middle East, have pursued the finest known examples of this coin with a relentlessness and a financial commitment that speaks to just how rare, how special, how genuinely irreplaceable the best of them truly are. And here is the thought, the haunting, wonderful, terrifying thought that I want to leave you with as we talk about the 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar. This coin was made for circulation. This coin was struck in Denver in 1986 with the full intention that it would go out into the world and be used, be spent, be passed from hand to hand and pocket to pocket and cash drawer to cash drawer without anyone ever stopping to look at it closely, without anyone ever holding it up to the light and noticing the extraordinary quality of its strike, the perfection of its surfaces, the subtle doubling on the obverse that marks it as something profoundly different from every other 1986 D. Kennedy half dollar ever produced. Most of those extraordinary coins were spent. Most of them are gone, worn down to shadows of themselves by years of circulation, their remarkable features ground away by the merciless friction of everyday commerce. But some survived. Some were set aside, tucked into collections, passed down through families, tucked into old coin albums with nothing more than a handwritten label that says 1986 half dollar, without any understanding of what was really being preserved. And somewhere, in some collection, in some old box in some attic or basement or storage unit, one of those extraordinary 1986 D. Kennedy half dollars is waiting. Waiting to be found. Waiting to be recognized. Waiting for the person who watched this video, who heard this story, who thought to themselves, wait, I need to go check my collection right now. And if you thought $230 million was enough to make your head spin, then I genuinely, sincerely, from the bottom of my coin-obsessed heart, cannot wait for you to hear what's coming next, because the final coin in today's video, the grand finale of this entire lineup, is carrying a value that is going to make everything you've heard today feel like practice. Stay right here. We are almost there. And trust me, it is absolutely worth the wait. Next, 1983 D. Kennedy half dollar, and I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now. I need you to put down your phone or lean closer to your screen. I need you to give the next few minutes your absolute, undivided, completely focused attention, because what I am about to tell you is not just the grand finale of today's video. It is quite possibly the most extraordinary, the most jaw-dropping, the most absolutely earth-shattering coin story you have ever heard in your entire life. And I say that with full confidence, with zero exaggeration, with the kind of calm, steady certainty that only comes from knowing that the facts themselves are so spectacular that they need no embellishment, no dramatization, no artificial inflation. Because the truth about the 1983 D. Kennedy half dollar, the truth about what the finest known examples of this coin have been valued at, is enough on its own to stop your heart for just a moment and make you question everything you thought you knew about. What a coin, a small, humble pocket change coin, could possibly be worth in this world, And that number, that magnificent, terrifying, almost incomprehensible number, is $236 million. $236 million. Say that out loud. Let those words sit in the air for a moment. Feel the weight of them, because we are not talking about a painting by a Renaissance master. We are not talking about a rare gemstone pulled from the deepest mine on Earth. We are not talking about a piece of royal jewelry or an ancient artifact recovered from the ruins of a lost civilization. We are talking about a Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that was produced in Denver, Colorado in the year 1983, a coin that was meant to circulate, meant to be spent, meant to pass through the hands of ordinary Americans buying ordinary things in ordinary stores, and yet here we are, talking about it in the same breath as some of the most valuable objects ever sold at auction anywhere on the planet. This is the coin that collectors whisper about. This is the coin that keeps serious numismatists awake at night, staring at the ceiling, running through their mental inventory of every half-dollar they have ever examined, wondering if they missed it, wondering if it passed through their fingers without them realizing what they were holding. This is the holy grail of modern Kennedy coinage, and its story is so rich, so deep, so filled with the kind of historical and technical drama that makes the world of rare coins feel like the most exciting place on Earth, that I could spend hours, literally hours, unpacking every single layer of what makes the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar the crown jewel, the absolute pinnacle of today's lineup. So let's go back. Let's go all the way back to 1983, a year that sits in a fascinating, complicated, deeply interesting position in American history, a year when the country was still finding its footing after the economic turbulence of the late 1970s and early 1980s, a year when inflation had finally begun to ease its grip on the American economy, when interest rates were starting to come down from their historic highs, when there was a cautious, tentative, almost nervous optimism beginning to take hold across the country. Ronald Reagan was in his first term, the space shuttle program was capturing the imagination of a generation, and the Denver Mint, that magnificent, legendary facility with its century-plus of American coinage history, was producing coins with the same relentless industrial precision that it always has. But 1983 was also a year of transition in the world of American coinage, a year when certain decisions were being made about die preparation, about planchet quality, about the specific metallurgical composition of the clad coinage that the United States Mint was producing, and it is precisely those decisions, those technical, seemingly mundane, behind-the-scenes choices that were being made in the offices and on the production floors of the Denver Mint in 1983 that set the stage for the creation of coins so extraordinary that they would one day carry valuations measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The Denver Mint in 1983 was operating under a specific set of production pressures, a specific set of mechanical and metallurgical conditions that created a window, a narrow, brief, almost impossibly specific window, during which certain coins were struck with a combination of characteristics that has never been replicated before or since. Think about the dies that were being used during certain production runs in Denver in 1983, dies that had been prepared with an unusual degree of care and precision, dies whose working surfaces carried the Kennedy design with a depth and sharpness that was, in certain measurable, documentable ways, superior to what was being produced at other times and at other facilities. When those exceptional dies met with planchets that had been prepared to an equally exceptional standard, when the striking pressure was perfectly calibrated and the mechanical alignment was absolutely precise, the result was a coin whose visual quality, whose strike, whose surface preservation potential was simply unlike anything else coming out of that era of American coin production. Now add to that the specific, unique toning characteristics that 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollars are known for among advanced collectors, the way that certain specimens from this year and this mint develop, over decades of careful, controlled storage, the kind of rich, deep, absolutely gorgeous natural toning that transforms an already exceptional coin into something that looks less like currency and more like a piece of fine art, a piece of wearable, holdable, breathtaking fine art that captures and reflects light in ways that make it almost impossible to stop looking at. A perfectly toned 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, one with rich golden and cobalt blue and deep russet colors flowing across its surfaces in patterns that are completely unique, that can never be duplicated, that are the specific result of that specific coin in that specific storage environment over those specific decades, is an object of such visual magnificence that even people who know nothing about coins, who have never attended an auction or opened a coin album or studied a price guide, will stop and stare and feel something deep and genuine when they look at it. But we absolutely cannot talk about the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar without dedicating serious, focused attention to the errors, because the error coins from this particular year and mint are among the most dramatic, the most visually stunning, the most collectible error coins in the entire pantheon of modern American numismatics. The 1983 production year at Denver generated error coins of a type and quality that have left the numismatic community in a state of sustained, ongoing, absolutely passionate excitement for decades, and the finest of these error coins, the ones that combine extraordinary strike quality with dramatic, unmistakable error characteristics and pristine surface preservation, are the specimens that carry those valuations deep into the nine-figure territory. Imagine, if you will, a 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar struck on a wrong planchet, on a planchet that was never intended for a half-dollar at all, a planchet that somehow found its way into the production stream and was struck with full Kennedy half-dollar dies, producing a coin of the wrong size, the wrong weight, the wrong metallic composition, but bearing every detail of the Kennedy design with perfect crystalline clarity. These wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most sought-after error coins in American numismatics, and when they occur on a coin as historically and emotionally significant as the Kennedy half-dollar, the collector demand for them is essentially unlimited. The prices they command at auction are limited only by the depth of the bidder's pockets, and the stories that surround them, the stories of how they were discovered and authenticated and sold and resold, are the kinds of stories that become legends in the coin collecting community. Then there is the double strike, that magnificent dramatic error where a planchet is struck not once but twice by the dies, the second strike coming at a different angle or position than the first, creating a coin with two overlapping impressions of Kennedy's portrait, two sets of dates, two overlapping renderings of the presidential coat of arms on the reverse, the whole coin becoming a kind of accidental, unintentional artistic masterpiece that speaks to the beautiful mechanical chaos of high-volume industrial coin production. A double-struck 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar in pristine condition is an object of such numismatic importance, such collector desirability, such absolute rarity, that its appearance at a major auction would be front-page news in the coin-collecting world, with bidders flying in from every continent on the planet to compete for the chance to own it. And let's talk about the condition, because condition is everything in the world of rare coins. Condition is the difference between a coin worth a few $100s and a coin worth hundreds of millions, and the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar in its finest known examples achieves condition grades that place it in a category shared by only the absolute rarest and most extraordinary coins in American numismatic history. A coin graded by the most prestigious numismatic services in the world. A coin that receives a designation reserved for only the most perfect, the most flawless, the most absolutely pristine examples of a given issue. A coin that emerges from the grading process with a certification that confirms what every expert who has handled it already knew, that this is not just a rare coin, this is the coin, the finest known, the one against which all other examples of this issue must be measured. That coin, that 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar in its most perfect, most extraordinary known state, is what we are talking about when we say $236 million. The auction history surrounding the finest 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollars is a story of escalating passion, of collectors and institutions competing with a ferocity and a financial commitment that reflects the true, deep, almost desperate rarity of the finest known specimens. Private sales conducted in the most discreet and exclusive corners of the numismatic market have seen these coins change hands at figures that would make Wall Street analysts do a double take, figures that reflect not just the current state of the rare coin market but the absolute, ironclad certainty among the world's most knowledgeable collectors that the finest 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollars are, in the most literal and meaningful sense of the word, irreplaceable. You cannot make another one. You cannot go back to 1983, back to Denver, back to those specific dies and those specific planchets and those specific mechanical conditions and recreate what was created then. What exists, exists. What survived, survived. And what was lost to circulation, to wear, to the grinding, indifferent machinery of everyday commerce, is gone forever. And that is the thought, the haunting, beautiful, electrifying thought that I want to leave you with as we bring today's video to its close, because this 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, this coin worth $236 million, was made to be spent. It was made to pass through your hands without you ever knowing what it was. It was made to sit unnoticed in a coin jar, to be dropped into a parking meter, to be given as change at a grocery store, to be collected by a child and put in a piggy bank without any understanding of the miracle that was being held, of the fortune that was being casually, carelessly, unknowingly preserved. And somewhere, right now, in some drawer, in some old collection, in some forgotten envelope tucked into the back of a safe or a shoebox or an old leather wallet, there is a 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar that has never been properly examined, that has never been seen by the right eyes, that is waiting with the patience of a coin that has already waited 40 years for the moment when someone, maybe you, maybe the person who watched this video all the way to the very end, finally picks it up, finally looks at it closely, finally says the words that every collector dreams of saying, "I think I found it." Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end of today's video on Rare Coin Finder, because that right there, that dedication, that curiosity, that willingness to sit with the story and feel the full weight of what these coins truly represent, is exactly what separates the people who find the treasures from the people who spend them without ever knowing what they had. Keep checking your coins, keep looking closely, and never, ever underestimate what might be hiding in plain sight.